Do you like art? Do you like comics? Well, you have come to the right place, my friend. My name is Liam Jones, and I have been a fine artist for 15 years, my whole life really. But you know what? Comic books are pretty much the best thing ever. So that's what we're going to be doing here. I'm making a comic book. We're going to talk all things comic books and have a good time. Thanks for joining me. There's no point in playing it safe or trying to be politically correct. Let's get after it. It is good to be back. How's that for an intro? A couple of months ago, I got a new video editor and I spent like 2 months making one video, learning how to do all kinds of fancy transitions and stuff. And then I rendered the video for 12 hours, 24 hours, some ridiculous, burnt out my computer. It took 3 weeks in the shop because I tried to fix it myself. I ended up making it even worse. And so, yeah, 3 weeks in the shop. It didn't seem like 3 weeks.
2,000 years later.
It's a very long time. But I got it back, and now we're making videos again. Today, what I have for you is a review of sorts. It's a walk down memory lane, it's an homage, it's a head scratcher, it's a romp through a 1980s comic experience like no other. It is The Fall of the Mutants and Inferno and X-Men, a really long expanse of comics, actually. There's a lot of content here. I don't know how I'm going to get through it all, but we're going to have some fun in the attempt. Okay, so check this out. This is a stretch of comics, maybe 20 or so, from the late 80s, I think like 87, somewhere around there. And this is so chock full of sci-fi goodness and kind of classic writing chops on the part of Chris Claremont, who's the head writer here. The artist is Silvestri mostly. I mean, he's my favorite, so that's who we're going to get into here. So I'm going to fanboy it out a little bit. Hope you don't mind. I'm pretty sure that you're going to appreciate this. It started off with Silvestri just being able to draw demons really well. Of course, that's probably not how it started, because Silvestri, though he's amazing, this is Chris Claremont writing it, and he just had this idea to make these massive story arcs. I mean, this whole thing with Madelyne Pryor becoming, the Goblin Queen and using the Phoenix Force and stuff, like, it's just these overarching storylines that span years. I mean, the Phoenix thing goes back to the 60s, and it's still going. It's like the guy had ideas, like serious ideas. I know I can't just mention Phoenix in a drive-by. That's like believing in your heart of hearts that you can actually get a 30 series GPU. Aww. If you judge Phoenix by the movies, the 2 of them that they tried, then Phoenix is a veiny zombie girl. But in the comics, it is not so. Maybe the youths of this generation, when they think of Phoenix, they think of Harry Potter. I don't know. If there ever was an idea that was worth rehashing, maybe even to death, I don't know, it would be the idea of a phoenix. I mean, it starts off with an archetype, which is an excellent place to start for an idea. And it's just, as a result, it's meaningful, and it can tell a great story. And that's what the Phoenix is. And bringing me back around to my original point about Madelyne Pryor here. So Madelyne Pryor, just an interesting start to her character is that Chris Claremont named her after the lead singer in Steeleye Span. And Steeleye Span is a Welsh folk rock group that just so happens that my dad really liked it, and it was music that I grew up to as a kid, playing in my house all the time. So when I made that connection, that was something cool. But that's just the kind of thought that he put into his ideas. Let's just run through this for a second, see if it sounds completely ridiculous saying it out loud. Madelyne Pryor starts off as a clone. She's a clone made by an evil dude named Mr. Sinister. Oh no! But she's not the first clone that was made off of Jean Grey. And right here is where a lot of comic book writing just kind of loses me. I mean, it's for kids, right? So fine. Jean Grey's evil clone comes to life with the Phoenix Force. Madelyne marries Scott, and Scott was once Jean Grey's boyfriend. Uh-oh. Jean Grey comes back from the dead, and Scott finds out, and they're still in love. Madelyne sees, and she gets angry. And here, to me, is my favorite idea in the whole story arc. There's a demon who comes and takes advantage of her anger and gives her kind of a Rumpelstiltskin type choice to become whoever she wants to become, and she chooses to become an angry goblin queen. So it's her own choice, but it's by the power of a demon. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Is this the elephant in the room? Is this the thing that everyone wants to talk about? I don't know, but I can't not talk about it, and that's, of course, Madelyne Pryor's wardrobe. If my daughter ever wore this, I would go full Clockwork Orange, complete with Beethoven. I was 12 years old once. In fact, I think I was 12 years old when this came out, so I know what kind of effect it has on you. But, I mean, that's part of the whole thing, right? Anyway, all this to say, I made a really stupid song about it. It's so stupid. Oh. Underboobie, it's a underboob, underboobie. Underboobie, it's a underboob, underboobie. I can see under those boobs. And this is how I spend my free time. All right, where was I? Madelyne Pryor becomes the Goblin Queen by the power of a demon. Right. She gets frisky with Scott's brother Alex, and from there goes on this descent like Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader, only she's a super hot redhead ex-wife. Her creator, Mr. Sinister, gets her under his control again, but she's a Mary Sue type character with power far superior to anybody else's by virtue of birthright, and she overpowers him. I gotta say though, it's not the same kind of Mary Sue type situation as what you see nowadays. Maybe they actually cared about depth. Maybe they just weren't concerned with trying to make Marxist feminists happy. Maybe they just weren't hating on their main fan base. Okay, I don't want to get so political. Stop my eye out with the... Alright, moving on to my favorite subject, a little bit about art and Marc Silvestri here. Demons. Yes, demons. So here's my theory. Chris Claremont notices that Marc Silvestri can draw demons really well. Like, look at this. I mean, awesome, right? So he notices and he's like, yo, Mark. And Mark was like, hey, Chris. And Chris is like, you can draw demons really, really good. And Mark's like, I know. So Chris says, why don't we just draw demons like all the time? And Mark's like, okay. So this is one of Mark's, Mark? Am I on a first name basis with this guy? Anyway, it's one of Marc Silvestri's first demons, or like that I saw anyway, in the X-Men. This is in the Fall of the Mutants, and it's like got a human head and human hands. It's got claws like from a crab. It's an insect. Like, what a cool kind of look. And he continues that consistently. Like later on, that kind of face and the way the teeth are, you see that in Nastire. I don't know how you pronounce it. You see things written and you don't know how they're pronounced. But pretty consistent, and I love the whole look of it, especially with Dan Green's inks. Looking at all this demon stuff and this kind of subject matter gets me thinking about classical art, because that's how my brain works. I'm a fine artist by trade. So I made up a little segment, even with a little animation. It's where I'm going to talk a little bit about academic stuff and kind of go a little nerdy. Art nerd! Here is some super cool art that I personally love. It's super disturbed. Everything having to do with demons and hell and this kind of stuff is a little on the demented side, to say the least, right? But when you look at someone like Beksinski, for instance, who's this Polish artist, not a lot of people know about him outside of Poland. I have a Polish friend who showed me this stuff, and like, I'm hooked. Check this out. Check out this demented cathedral thing. The way I see it is someone can only come up with this kind of stuff if they were like in the throes of a communist regime that would drag you out into the woods if you thought wrong, This is the kind of stuff that'll really get you. Then there's Goya, then there's Duray, I think from Paradise Lost. He's another one of my favorites. And of course, there's Bosch, Hieronymus Bosch. Bosch is the notorious kind of classical artist who is actually a surrealist and just draws the stuff of nightmares. One of his famous paintings is the Garden of Earthly Delights. Another one of my favorites is Jan van Eyck, and this is from his Last Judgment, and this is an altarpiece. It's medieval art, and it's pre-Renaissance. That guy, Jan van Eyck, for those Flemish painters, don't mess with them. Another thing I like about Marc Silvestri, another thing, and another thing, and another thing I like, and this other thing. He tips the hat to classical art all over the place. Let me show you what I mean. So with Colossus, for instance, Colossus draws an awful lot like Mark Silvestri. In these series, Colossus can be found drawing a number of times. This one here where he's drawing Psylocke is pretty nice. Or here where he's drawing a goddess. No, but I mean a real goddess. A goddess. So he draws Psylocke, he draws a goddess. You'd think his last name was Rasputin, lover of the Russian queen. And even as I'm making fun of it here, all those little details were woven into the narrative and resolved.
Woven.
By Chris Claremont. Like, what a guy. He leaves no stone unturned. Nothing random. It's just amazing. So, we've established that Mark Silvestri can draw women really well. And this is in the 80s, in the fashion of the time. And if you look at the way women were portrayed, like in, say, a Robert Palmer video, Robert Palmer, Simply Irresistible, I guess, his art is very much influenced by the modern fashion of that time. Check out how he makes telling the story and setting out the landscape just something beautiful to look at, and how he throws in just nature and nice looking things into the middle of a fight sequence here. It's awesome. Mark Silvestri has a really gestural style of drawing. It's very active, lots of dynamics. It's very loose. I love how he repeats the pose here with this arm stretched back, and he's going to Hulk smash you with the thumb side of his fists. And it's really complemented by Dan Green's inks with the brush work and what have you. My only complaint is that sometimes they're a little bit too quick, too gestural. If every drawing was like this, I would be happy. But unfortunately, we have some looser drawings where things are just too loose. I mean, loose is good, too loose is not good. Maybe it's a deadline issue. Maybe it's just not caring. Maybe it's, there's any number of reasons why. But I mean, not every drawing is a winner. Let's talk about this for a second, because this is true for every artist ever. And if you make stuff, not everything is going to hit. And that's part of the beauty of it. Like, the reason why I like looking at someone's sketchbooks or the imperfections is because you really see their craft. And so even in a drawing like this, a 2-page spread, that doesn't really hit, but it doesn't, it's not awful. And there's a lot to talk about here. You can still see that this guy is a badass. I mean, look at the sexiness of the girl. Look at the dynamics of the shapes. Look at, where he's kind of being cheap with the buildings, but there's still something praiseworthy happening in them. And that's the beauty about artists who will do interiors and not just stick with the covers. Like when you get someone who is an A-lister like Mark Silvestri or Jim Lee or Arthur Adams or Mike Mignola or whoever, if they do the interiors, you see their chops. And just as an artist, I totally value that. It's not always what you want to see. Of course, you want to see what they bring, but I mean, look at Colossus in this picture here. Look at that attempt at drawing that. I mean, it's not an attempt. He succeeded at it. You know what it reminds me of is Tribute Money by Masaccio, his attempt at drawing this guy right here. It's not a perfect painting, but there's something admirable about it. Here's a one-page from Follow the Mutants. This is one of my all-time favorites. I've tried drawing this a bunch of times before I knew how to draw in perspective and was absolutely mystified. Like, this drawing, it's just, for me, it put Mark Silvestri on the map. Look at this. It's amazing. Like, did he use reference for this? Because how do you draw, like, broken wood and detritus like this so well? Like, were you looking at reference photos from like World War II in Europe or something? Or I guess there's no shortage of that, but still, it just looks so good. And Wolverine is solid drawn. Here is an example of one of Mark Silvestri's badass girl faces. It's a technique that he uses that I think a lot of people kind of copied it from him as time went on. But the way just the jowl and the jawline and the mouth, the way it sticks out, I love it. That's so good. So good. And in this series, there are so many good drawings of Wolverine. They're like you just want to stop and just look at the page and not move on. There's a bunch of really good drawings of hands too, kind of like Lee Week style, that just show just how good this guy is. And of course, there's other comics that show about this too, like this cover of Wolverine. There's a bunch of killer drawings of Colossus here. This is just after Colossus got bigger. He went through a whole transformation thing. He almost died, got healed by Magneto, came back bigger and stronger. 80s style. Arnold Schwarzenegger, steroids. Colossus got his steroids by way of Magneto. And there's still so much more to touch on, but this video is at about 15 minutes now. Maybe I'll make it for another day. You know, this is video number 18. I'm happy with it. I've been working on this for weeks. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'll talk to you soon. Hey, click subscribe, like it if you're into this. There's definitely lots more to come. The best is yet to come because I'm just getting started, just getting used to this, getting the workflow together, etc., etc. Thank you so much for watching. Greatly appreciate you. Talk to you soon. Bye now. Underboobie. It's an underboob. Underboobie. Underboobie. It's an underboob. Underboobie. I can see